So we're going to get into our next presentation, Supporting Innovation Through Mentorship. It is my pleasure to introduce Stephen Beamish and Scott Runte to the stage. Stephen and Scott are entrepreneurs in residence, or they like to call themselves EIRs, from LaunchLab Innovation Center. Their bios are in your packages. They are two very accomplished gentlemen. I've asked them why get involved with LaunchLab, and it's about giving back. I'm delighted that they have accepted the invitation to be a part of today's summit and share a little about a new program that is available through the 3 Community Futures Development Corporations in Leeds, Grenville. Please give a warm welcome to Stephen and Scott to the stage.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name's Scott Runte, and this is Stephen Beamish. So we're, as Ann said, we're here from LaunchLab. It's great to be here today. Certainly recognize a few familiar faces. We're really thrilled to be here in Grenville, Leeds and Grenville, and specifically here in Kemptville. This is our second time in the last few months with Terry and being here. I wanted to just say a special thanks to our previous panel. From an entrepreneur perspective, listening to you guys tell your stories, share your experiences, I think that really captures what we try to do when we're providing advice and mentorship to companies we're working with. I don't know about any of you, but when I heard about about Dave talking about signing up bus tour companies, I'm really looking forward to seeing the buses flying over the Thousand Islands attached to them. So I think that would be fantastic. Or, the other thing I thought of was maybe we could have 4 Adirondack chairs underneath the helicopter going through. So just some business ideas. We're never short of ideas here. But anyways, what I thought we would try to do today is tell you a little bit about LaunchLab, a little bit about the partnership that we are developing here in Leeds and Grenville and throughout Eastern Ontario, a little bit about our model, and then what we'd like to do is finish off. Stephen and I would like to share a few of the experiences or thoughts around challenges that we see a lot of companies facing when we're working with them. So what I thought I would do is just give you a little bit of sense of, just from a LaunchLab perspective, we are what's known as a regional innovation center. We're part of the Ontario Network of Entrepreneurs. So at our core, we're a provincially funded model, and we work in partnership within that network. So many of you would know, for example, the Small Business Enterprise Centers. I think Wendy might be here from Brockville. They are part of our network. We work in partnership with them. We also work with some of the economic development officers from the province, business advisors. They are also part of what we do. So the Ontario Network of Entrepreneurs is where we come from. LaunchLab is what's known as a regional innovation center. There are 17 of these centers across the Ontario network. So LaunchLab is one of 17. And here in Eastern Ontario, the closest other center is up in Ottawa. It's part of Invest Ottawa. So when you think of those 2 regions, we represent about 14 entrepreneurs that essentially are trying to help other entrepreneurs. That's the core of what we do. And as I said, from a LaunchLab perspective, you can see we're covering quite a broad area. And so to be able to do that effectively, many of you would not come to Kingston or know that LaunchLab exists. And so we really can't be effective without finding local partners to work with. And that'll lead into what I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the partnerships here locally. Just from a perspective of what we're doing, right now LaunchLab is currently working with about 125 active clients. Since we started in 2010, we've provided mentorship to a little over 400 clients. So, and we're doing that with about 7 entrepreneurs. So Stephen and I represent 2 of 7. So it's a one-on-one. It's a one-on-one model. When we work with a client, we will assign one entrepreneur to be your point person. We like to think of it as a partner on the file, and then that person becomes your access point to the different services, not only within LaunchLab, but within the networks and partnerships that we represent. We can't do that without funding support. You know, as I said, we are at our core funded by the provincial government and through the Ontario Network of Entrepreneurs. But more recently, we have found that the Community Futures Development Corporations, and specifically the Eastern Ontario Community Futures Development umbrella, to be fantastic partners in, as I said, trying to reach companies and be able to serve them. We're also really thrilled to have launched this year our corporate partnership program, and we've brought on our first corporate partner that helps us in the delivery of services. So Andrews Robichaux is a business, intellectual property, and trademark law firm out of Ottawa. One of their partners grew up in Cornwall, very committed to Eastern Ontario, with tremendous expertise in those three areas. So we're really thrilled to have them on board. And we're looking to expand that corporate partnership network to allow us to broaden the services and the reach. So here in Eastern Ontario, I think Gord mentioned earlier the Eastern Ontario Development Program. You know, from a company perspective, we certainly see that as an extremely valuable tool for many of the clients we work with, and it has also become a great opportunity for us as a regional innovation center to work in partnership with the CFDCs. And we're really thrilled this past summer working with the regional network of 15 CFDCs here in Eastern Ontario. 3 regional innovation centers we've agreed to work in partnership over the next year and hopefully beyond to work with clients in Eastern Ontario where your businesses are. And so Launch Lab in partnership with Invest Ottawa and Spark Center all the way in Oshawa are working with this entire network. So, and here in Leeds and Grenville, where the rubber really hits the road as far as I'm concerned, we're just thrilled to be working with the 3 CFs, you know, with the Grenville Community Futures, Heather and Jason. I think Jason I saw here. We've started working with them, as well as Tom and his team in Brockville. And we've been working with Susan and her team in Smith Falls, serving the northern part of Leeds for a little over a year now. So as I said earlier, this has really, in our opinion, been a fantastic partnership. You know, we're just starting with Brockville and Grenville, but it's been phenomenal. Stephen and I are probably in this area now 3 or 4 days a month, and you know, we're starting to meet clients, and we're really excited about that. So I can't thank the CFs enough. I can't thank the network enough, and I can't thank the Eastern Ontario Development Program enough. We see it as just a huge tool. So what I'm going to do now is I'll let Stephen say a few words, a little bit about his background. I'd share you know, one story. I met Stephen I guess a little over a year ago, and I'm the finance and operations background guy in our team, and Stephen's the marketing guy. So Gord, I was really pleased that you mentioned my name instead of Stephen's, because 9 times out of 10 clients always want to talk to the marketing person. You know, I'm not saying anything, but anyways, no, Stephen, I was really fortunate to meet Stephen a little over a year ago. He was vice president of marketing, or chief marketing officer at Mitel. And he'll tell you he turned down opportunities to move to Silicon Valley. He and his wife are raising their family in Ottawa. He's originally from Ottawa. And maybe, Steve, before we start, I'd love for you to tell the group your story about being in the U.S. and why you wanted to help Canadian companies, because I think it's really important, and it really gets to the cornerstone of why we're doing what we're doing. So, Steve, over to you.
Thanks. First of all, 2 comments. If you thought I was just up here for eye candy, I am actually going to speak as well. And no, we're not brothers. Okay, now we've got that out of the way. So the story of, as the Mitel marketing guy, Mitel went public a few years ago, and being the brilliant man that I am, and brilliant marketing guy, I made a decision that, the NASDAQ, if you go on the NASDAQ, they'll give you $200,000 to market, and they'll let you come ring the bell and do all that fun stuff. And I said, we're just going to wait a couple of years till our stock, you know, we went out at about $7. I said, we'll wait till we're about trading at 12, about 2 years, then we'll make a big event. Well, so I booked it, and 2 years later, we were trading at $2. So.
Anybody own stock?
And actually, so when we went to the NASDAQ, first of all, I had gotten a tour bus that we had outfitted with Mitel, was traveling around the U.S. doing very well, and I actually got a parking permit at Times Square. And that was $7,000 for the day. But talk about entrepreneurship. So the guy running this for me was fantastic. And, we were having an analyst event that day, and the guy comes running up, he says, "We have a problem with the bus." And I'm like, "Well, what's the problem?" He says, "We got a hot dog stand guy who's put his hot dog stand right in front of the door of the bus." So this bus is for our customers to come in and see. So these are the things that you run into that you do not expect. Well, this entrepreneur who I had hired for the bus was very, very intelligent, and he ran across, he said to the guy, "How many hot dogs do you sell a day?" Guy says, "I sell about $500 worth." So he ran across, he took out of the bank machine, 600. "There you go away." And he did. But he came back the next day and brought the pretzel guy and the flour guy. And that's a true story. So that's entrepreneurship. Anyway, so just to allude to Scott's comment, so I had arranged for meetings at the New York Times and Bloomberg. And so we had a new CEO at the time who's still there, Rich McBee, a great guy. And so he and I hopped in a New York cab, and we first went to New York Times, and we did an interview there, and it was great. Then we hopped in the cab, we went to Bloomberg, and we went in, and I walked into this room, and it was state of the art, and there were three guys, I'll never forget it, sitting there, and they didn't say hello. We were just escorted to where we would sit, and then one guy had his head down into his laptop, hit a button, and up on the wall came up everything about Mitel. And they knew a lot, and it was like, wow. And so then he hit the record button for the interview, and his first question was, "How does it feel to be in the bottom 10% of the NASDAQ?" I turned that one over to the CEO. That's why, and so that right away, your heart's going crazy. You're thinking, okay, this is that record button. Hopefully he missed. And the next question was, so what is it with these Canadian companies? Why is it that they just can't seem to get it done? And he said, you look at Nortel, and at the time BlackBerry was tanking, and he says, and Mitel. So what is it? And then he said, is there anybody in here who's Canadian? Well, I was the only Canadian in the room. Now, I was happy to address that one. And the point is, I wanted to say so many things, but you have to be, especially as the marketing guy responsible for public relations, you have to be very careful about what you say. But what really got my Irish up was the fact that there is tremendous talent here. I've seen the level of innovation and the talent and the ability to get it done does exist. I, at the time, was thinking, after being at Mitel for 10 years, that I was going to go on, just because I always do believe that you need to bring in new blood, and I thought there was time for new blood for marketing and strategic partnerships. And I had an offer to move to Palo Alto to run marketing for VMware. And I turned it down. And that's when I went to Invest Ottawa, and I said, guys, I just want to help. I want to help some of these businesses, and this is why. Because when I hear comments like that, it drives me nuts. And I just to skip ahead to today, Scott alluded to the number of clients that we've seen. And I am blown away, absolutely blown away by the talent that I've seen. So I don't work at all with Invest Ottawa. I am Launch Lab. I'm a resident of Lanark County. I go to Smith Falls and to Brockville and to all the other locations, and I am blown away by the talent. And any help that we can give to get those folks, one step closer, is tremendous in my mind. And we all bring very wide networks of people that we know through industries, and I think that network is also a great advantage that we can bring to the table. So just skipping ahead now to a couple of points. We have 3 points each that we based on. He's the finance guy, I'm the marketing guy, but he's the wannabe marketing guy, and I'm the don't want to be finance guy. So let me talk about one of the things that first thing I see out there a lot is businesses need to understand how to differentiate. Let's put this out there right away. Price is not a differentiation. I talk to clients about sustainable differentiation. And the beauty of being from a launch lab perspective is we act as third-party advisors. We don't typically know the people. It's better that we don't. We can provide objective advice because there's many people that go to their friends and their family and, they're afraid to tell you exactly what they think. So they tell you what you want to hear. We don't. We tell you what we think. We're not mean about it at all. We're there to help. We're a partner. And so one piece of advice would be to differentiate. And not differentiate just today, but it is an ongoing rolling thunder requirement of differentiation as you progress. We, at the Mitel days, would sit around in a boardroom and strategize, and the engineers would come in and they'd come up with these great, great things, and we'd say, that is fantastic. Let's go for it. And then somebody would say, yeah, but you know what? There's two guys in a basement. That's the term we always said. There's two guys in a basement that are building the same thing. They're nimbler and they're faster. And that's what I think the advantage is. These are, our clients are the two guys in the basement. And the point being is, you as entrepreneurs have to constantly think about that as well, that there are two guys in a basement. So differentiation today and tomorrow is one of the three that I think is critical for entrepreneurs today. Scott?
Thanks, Stephen. It's funny. I have to agree with them, and I do agree with them. But we were in a meeting with a client yesterday, and they were the two guys in the basement, and we were actually telling them there's a really large company out there that's probably doing a skunkworks project and doing this right now. Yeah. So I think it's always assumed that if you've got a great idea, assume that somebody else has thought about it. And if you're wrong and they haven't, well, that's great, but at least be prepared. Be prepared to fight that fight. So, I'm the finance guy, so my first topic is cash is king. Now, for any of us who have ever been part of a business or run a business or controlled a budget, this is pretty self-explanatory. But it's amazing when we're talking to companies that, especially when they're at the startup stage and they don't have cash reserves, they don't have ongoing customers, and they're thinking about taking this product to market, thinking about what the cash requirements of that is going to be, the plan. What happens if the plan doesn't go according to plan? What if we're delayed by 6 months? Do we need to raise investment? If you're manufacturing, Francois with I haven't met Francois or seen his business, but I can imagine with these chairs, he's got raw materials, he's got labor, both Francois right on a larger scale. How do we finance all of that? And so for startups, a lot of times they're not really recognizing the cash requirement of their business. The gentleman on the screen, does anybody recognize who that is? So he started his business, that's Michael Dell. He started his business while he was a student at the University of Texas. I put his picture up there from a cash perspective because at that time, he changed the way in which, or he came up with a thought that he was going to change the way in which people bought computers. And eventually businesses bought computers. So, again, from a cash perspective, his model, if anyone here has ever bought a Dell computer, and I've bought a couple, Stephen's a Mac guy, is, you're giving that company 100% of the cash before they are even probably sourcing the materials to make the computer. What a great cash flow model. In software today, you see recurring revenue, you see subscription-based models, you see recurring revenue models that, so these things are out there, and we really encourage companies when we're talking to them to really look at the business from a cash perspective and really explore how you can work with your customers, your suppliers, to really be able to manage that cash position. So back to you, sir.
The second point is customers. And a lot of clients, a lot of entrepreneurs don't realize that your customers are your biggest advocates. We had a client that came in yesterday that's saying, I need money. And I said, what do you need the money for? Marketing. Okay, so what are you going to use that money for? Well, blah, 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 blah. Okay, but do you have a base of customers? Yeah, I have 70 customers. What are you doing with them? Right. You sold to them and then you went on. They are your biggest advocates. They are the people that will speak and love to speak about your product or your service. You sometimes can reward them with very simple things, or many times they don't even need or want to be rewarded. They love to create a partnership with you as a trusted advisor, and you need to treat them as a trusted advisor. They are, when you look at small businesses today, the very first thing they do, because I'm a stats junkie, 70% of people that are looking for products or services will go to Google, right? That's the first step, but that's not the only step. They'll talk to their friends. Sometimes they'll even talk to their competitors and say, who have you used? Now, these are competitors that may be in a different geographical location and not direct competitors. But the whole idea is they are very, very smart. Everybody out there is very smart because they've got all the tools. So entrepreneurs really need to take advantage of this very low-cost advantage that they've got is their customer advocates, creating reference programs, creating, getting testimonials, doing case studies on existing, because when people come searching to look, there are 3 areas they go on your website. They go to your homepage, they go to your About page, and they go to your testimonials. They rarely go to your products, because really they're looking for partnerships. So for those of you who have your own analytics on your website, which you should all do, Google Analytics is free. You go in there and you look, and it'll tell you where people are going. And I guarantee you that if they are going to your products, it's not one of the first places they're going. So use your customer as your biggest advocates and your biggest cheerleaders out there. And that would be the second point that I would make.
And as Stephen said, I really love to be a marketing guy. So, to his slide here, I was having a conversation with our CEO, Michael Mann, just earlier this week. And he was telling me about his experience early in his career. He was in sales, and he was on the East Coast, based out of Moncton. And he was selling industrial equipment. And he was very successful at that. And, this was the traditional, old school, here's your car, you've got the Maritimes. He spent a lot of time on the road talking to customers. He switched jobs, and he went to work for Honeywell. And he was telling me that when he went to Honeywell, he was required to sell maintenance contracts on their heating and air conditioning units. And the cost at the time was $12,000 per year. And he said to me, I struggled. I couldn't sell. Nobody was interested. I thought about it day and night. I'm this young sales guy. I've been successful selling equipment. Now I'm selling service contracts, and nobody's interested. And to the point of your customers being your greatest advocates, he made the observation that there were in his territory, there were a lot of hotels, smaller hotels, chain hotels. And of course, he was staying in many of them. So he knew as any of us who've been on the road, you get to find your favorite hotels, you get to know the people. Well, he went to them, and he started talking to them about their business. And what came to him was the idea that, okay, you've got a hotel. How many rooms do you have? What's your occupancy rate? So how many hotel nights is that per year? All right, did the simple math, and he worked out that service contract was 40 cents a room night. And he started selling these service contracts based on that. Add 50 cents to the cost of your room, you're paying for the service contract, you don't have to worry about that. He started selling. Not only that, Honeywell adapted it as a standard practice across their entire business at that point for selling that type of business. So, again, he came to that idea by talking to his customer.
And just one other thing to add about that before we go to the next point. HootSuite, some of you may know HootSuite, and some of you also may have heard of, it became very popular on YouTube is, celebrities read mean tweets, where they actually will look at how people are tweeting about them and they read them. So what HootSuite did, just not that long ago, is they did the same sort of thing. They did a whole piece and a marketing push on them reading mean tweets about HootSuite. So the employees of HootSuite would look and it would say, they were going, "Dear HootSuite, your user interface sucks." And they would read this out and use this as a marketing push. And the whole idea was they then took that campaign and and it was all about how their user interface was and how everybody hated it. And they said, so we listened to you, and here's what we did. Well, the massive amount of customer loyalty, because it showed we listened to you, we use you as advocates, and the customers felt like they were part of the team because each one of them could walk away and said, I made a difference to that company because they changed because of what I said. What a great story.
So, a little bit on the market. Probably there are some people that recognize these 4 guys. The idea of the market determines your success. Again, pretty intuitive, but And again, sometimes when you're working, especially with people that are starting a company or they've built a great product, they're almost reluctant to get out into the market and start talking to customers and start, really getting the market to prove the validation of their product, their service, their idea. I threw up a picture of a young picture of the Beatles because I don't know if there's any Malcolm Gladwell fans in the audience, but he wrote a little chapter in his book Outliers about these guys because when they were teenagers, rather than just practicing in their band, they actually crossed the channel and worked in Hamburg, Germany for 2 years. And Mr. Gladwell talks about the 10,000-hour rule, but the point being they didn't do their 10,000 hours in their garage or their basement. They went and they did it in the bars in Hamburg. They weren't the nicest bars in the world, but at the end of that 2-year stint, they were playing 7 nights a week, 15, 16 shows, and that was before they ever went across the Atlantic and landed on the Ed Sullivan Show. So I think it's just a testament that the sooner you can be in the market talking to your customers, they are going to be the ones that ultimately determine your success. It's not me, it's not Stephen, it's going to be your market.
Okay, my last one is focus. Scott and I end up doing a lot of these client intakes together, and I can tell when Scott's going to say something because I see where they're talking about, cash, and then he's jumping in. Well, he gets a grin on his face when he hears the client talking about, well, we're doing this, but, because he knows what I'm going to say, because focus is critical. So many times I see people chasing shiny objects and not staying focused on the goal at hand. We often talk about quarterly business reviews, which are, we say it should be 30% looking back, 70% looking forward. We did, at Mitel, we did these quarterly business reviews, and it was never a blame game. It was this exact thing, and we actually got down to a monthly cadence of looking specifically in, because we'd focus on a goal and we constantly try to execute to that goal. And it was very tempting at times to chase that shiny object. And you needed people to pull you back in and say, wait a minute, what are you here for? Remember what you're here for. Remember what your goal was. Because we'll say, where do you want to be in 3 years? Where do you want to be in 1 year? And we need, if no one's asked you that question, we'll be the first to ask you. But focus is critical. And what people don't realize, what a lot of these entrepreneurs don't realize, is that if you don't focus and then you want to go look for investment, investors are very savvy. And they will bet on A teams and B products before they will bet on A products and B teams. So you may not be, or that client may, or that entrepreneur may not be the A team right away, but they could surround themselves with A players and have a B product and be very successful. If you want to talk about, many of you may remember the days of VHS versus Betamax. There's a case of great products, but it was the execution that made the difference. It wasn't so much the product, right? So the investors will look to see, well, are you focused? Are you looking specifically at bringing a team in that's focused on achieving this goal? Or are you chasing shiny objects? Because they're not willing to part with their money if they see that you're chasing shiny objects, and they're going to have to spend their time reeling you back in, and you're missing the opportunity and that is in front of you because you want to chase the next thing. So that would be my third. I've got lots of opinions on more, but I'll stop there for now. But that's just some of what we see out there and what we try to help with. And I got to give him a bit of credit. He has become quite a good marketing guy. So
if anyone's looking for a marketing person,
but so together we're able to, again, we're not critical of these folks. We know what it's like out there. We're there to help them, and just to make sure if nothing else, they walk out of the room thinking about some of these things, and that's a success for us. Scott?
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. So, to kind of wrap up a little bit, a little bit about our model. As I said, this is an advisory model. We are here, if we engage with the client, it is to provide advice. It is not to do the work. There is no cost to the client. I mean, by virtue of our core funding and our partnerships with the CFDCs and the CFDC network and the EODP program, we're able to offer our service to you at no cost. But it's advice, it's not doing the work. So we're not here to take away from, there are great consultants, there are great professionals that are here to work with you in the ecosystem. When you get to have 200 employees and growing, like Francois, you'll have the resources to be able to, grow your company on your own, hopefully. And you'll have a solid management team. We're really there when a lot of times an owner-operator is, they're on their own. As I always say, I win every argument with myself. I'm batting 1,000 so far. But we're really there to give you that, hopefully that strategic opinion, question the path you're looking at, and hopefully allow you to make the best decisions to either deal with a challenge or take advantage of an opportunity. We can't do that, though, as Stephen said, if you're not in a good planning process. So, I think my father once said to me, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And so the way we can work best is working with you where you do have a planning process, and we are your strategic advisors. And if it's not us, it's somebody else within our team, or it's somebody within the ecosystem. As you work, this is really, really important. And I don't think, Stephen, we've seen too many companies when we've met them for the first time where they've got this nailed down. Because a lot of times when you're just one or two people, you're in the trees, you're not looking at the forest, and we're trying to at least instill a thought that you've got to do this. The largest companies in the world do this. So, in summary, thank you so much for allowing us to be here today, and for the invitation, Terry, for North Grenville for hosting. We're really thrilled to be here in Leeds and Grenville. I play hockey with Gord. In fact, hopefully 6:30 tomorrow morning, I'm going to see him on the ice. We'll have helmets on.
Gord, I told him to give you the Gordie Howe for not mentioning my name.
Yeah. But to Tom and Heather, to Susan and her team, we're just thrilled to be working with the CFDC network. We're thrilled to be working with the economic development partners, Dave, Paul. I see folks from Brockville here. We look forward to being here next year, and we look forward to working with some great companies in this region. So thank you very much.
Thank you.